Hello, and today I'm joined by Coach Gavin Hart of the South Coast Spitfires. So, Gavin, what's your background in football? Just to start off the interview.
My personal background in football, I started playing in about '84. Playing for just youth football back in the day. We used to play full contact with no pads back in those days. There wasn't sort of any rules around it in those days. So I got into the game. I went on holiday to Florida and Alabama and saw a game at Auburn versus Alabama.
Wow, that must be amazing.
Yeah, it's a great game to watch for the first game.
Was that back in the days of Coach Bear Bryant?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
That must be amazing.
I was just instantly hooked, and that year was the same year they started showing the game on Channel 4 in the UK. Just by coincidence, a local team started up or was running close to where I used to live at the time, and myself and a few friends used to go and watch them. They started up a youth team, and the rest is history, really. I've been playing since '84, to say, for a couple of different teams. I've played in Europe, so had a pretty extensive career. Finished off with the Solent Thrashers.
What Europe team did he play for?
So I played for the Farnham Knights, the PA Knights, in the European competition. So we were in the Euro Bowl 2 years. Got to the final 1 year, but unfortunately we're beaten. But yeah, so I played quite a lot of football in Europe for a British team, but obviously in European competitions, etc.
That's awesome. So you've already had a pretty impressive playing career before coaching even started.
So yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's been a pretty wild ride, that's for sure.
So this leads me on to the next question. So what was your reason behind the creation of the South Coast Spitfires?
I'll be honest, the primary reason was really for my son. So I've got a son who grew up obviously watching me play. And as he was getting older, was showing more and more interest in playing, but there wasn't really anywhere locally for him to be able to go and play. So I was still with the Solent Thrashers at the time, and kind of came up with the idea of setting up a cadet team under the banner of the Solent Thrashers to see if there were any other kids out there that wanted to come and play football. But also just because I'd started towards the end of my career. I was in my late 40s by the time I retired. So while I was still playing, I was obviously starting to go more towards a coaching role within the team, and yeah, just enjoyed coaching and just wanted to give back to the sport, shall we say.
Awesome. But the team, they didn't stay under this Solent Thrashers for very long. What happened there? What led to the origination of the South Coast Spitfires we know today?
So essentially what happened was we were, as I said, part of the Thrashers organisation, and we were training on Sundays with the youth team and the adult contact team sharing the same field, or not at the same time, but obviously sharing the same field in terms of location. But we found that Sundays just didn't really work well for a lot of players for us. We had a lot of players that would come along to 1 or 2 sessions, wanted to come and play, but because of other commitments like rugby, hockey, football, those kind of things, Sundays just wasn't suitable for them. And we found that we were losing a lot of players. So we, as the cadet team at the time, made the decision to start training on Saturdays. So we moved to a Saturday afternoon, and our numbers just started growing really quickly. As soon as we moved, our numbers grew. And then basically just sort of, it was really, the usual things with British football, a little bit of politics, a little bit of differences of opinion as to how the cadet team would run within the bigger organisation of the adult team. And we just decided that we needed to have our own set of guidelines, if you like, that was more specific to cadet and flag football. So we chose to kind of break away from the Thrashers, by name at least, and then created our own team, the South Coast Spitfires, which was in quite hastily put together in sort of early 2018. We were still registered as the Thrashers, I think, in sort of about February, March time, and managed to get the team set up and running and registered with BAFA and into competition for the 2018 season. So
wow, that must have been quite a rush you were in to do that. With recruiting, obviously, American football is not the first choice of sport for many young children these days. You've got to compete with the likes of English football and rugby. How did you go about recruiting?
I'll be honest with you, we haven't really had to recruit that heavily. We've been very fortunate. A lot of our growth has just been natural growth. So with the players that we've had, just talking to friends at school, brothers and sisters, we've got quite a lot of players on our team are brothers and sisters, and we've really just grown fairly naturally in that way. We have had some recruitment days, and we've picked up players from recruitment, obviously, but actually the majority of our team are here or with us through word of mouth, effectively. So we've been pretty lucky. We haven't had to have too much in the way of heavy recruitment. We've tried going into schools, local schools, as I'm sure every team does, but the initial conversation seems to go well, but then once we kind of get into the next stage of, okay, let's get something going, we always seem to sort of hit a wall, and the communication stops, unfortunately. So it's a problem with the UK game, I think.
Yeah, it's just because obviously the competition with football and rugby, it's unlikely that American football will ever be able to overtake those two sports, but it's just about growing it as much as possible. And
absolutely,
it looks like you're doing a great job of that at Spitfires.
I think the move to Saturday was the key thing for us. That really sort of freed up the time for kids to play both sports now.
Yeah, that's really great. What are the traits you look for in your players?
For me, it's really, I just look for people that want to come and play. That's the first thing. If you don't want to play, then I'm not saying you shouldn't be there, but you've got to want to play the game. Any game you play, you've got to want to play it. So kids that turn up and want to play, that's the first thing I look for. And then after that, it's really just effort. All I want the kids to do is try their best. The way I see it is, it's my job to coach them how to play the game. They just have to want to play the game and put their effort into it, and then the rest of it is my job to coach them. Obviously, if they've got natural ability, that's always a good thing to see as a coach, when you see a player that's just naturally a gifted athlete, and we're fortunate to have several of those on our team. But as I say, really, it's just all about effort and desire.
Yeah. What are your coaching philosophies as a head coach of this squad?
So for me, I've got what I call the three Fs. So fun, fundamentals, and then the third one is a phonetic F, but philosophy. And for me, that's so the idea is we're coaching kids. They're 6, 7 years old through to 14 years old. We want them to have fun. That's the most important thing. It's the kids have got to come and have fun at training, and have fun playing the game. We encourage them to celebrate when they score. We encourage them to enjoy the game, enjoy the moment effectively. Then fundamentals is a key one for me. I don't coach teams to win games. That's not the way I want to be as a coach. I want to coach players to play. I teach them the fundamentals, make sure all the players are fundamentally sound in whatever position they're playing and in the game as a whole. And then as far as I'm concerned, if I've got a team of players that are fundamentally sound and enjoying the game, then they're gonna win games for me. So it's that's kind of the two kind of the first two Fs, and then the third one is just philosophy, and that's really just making sure I coach my philosophy into the kids, which I've said is effort, fun, entertainment, giving it your all, playing respectfully. So I encourage the players to have fun and celebrate, but it's all got to be done with respect. And I'm really about coaching the kids up and helping them become good young men and women as well. Through football, helping them understand life as well. So it's all about implanting that kind of team philosophy. We don't have any one. Yeah, we don't have any one player that's bigger than the team or better than the team. We play as a team, we win as a team, we lose as a team.
It's a really important thing as well, especially with like children of a younger age, trying to keep them in the sport, keep them enjoying the sport. You find it's got to be the priority, because if you're coaching them, if you're shouting at them, they're not going to listen. They're not going to want to come back, and they're going to eventually leave the sport. And what you're doing over at Spitfires is great in that respect.
Thank you.
Moving over to more like the football side of things, how does a flag football playbook vary from a kitted one?
That was one of the challenges I had. Obviously I played kitted football for, as I say, 30 plus years. And then when I set the team up, I obviously had to adjust my thinking to flag football. And I'd never played flag football before. I'd never really even seen it before, if I'm brutally honest. So had to learn the rules quickly. and obviously had to come up with plays. So the first thing is it's 5-a-side as opposed to 11-a-side, so that's the first thing I had to adjust to. But then obviously the big thing is no blocking. That's the biggest thing to kind of come to grips with. I think in terms of the playbook as a whole, it hasn't changed drastically in terms of, for me, I still look for my receivers to run good routes. I still look for my quarterbacks to make good reads. We still look at defenses are exactly the same. There's less players, but they still run either a man-to-man or some form of zone. And we're looking for ways to attack those defenses. So we try and keep our playbook relatively simple. But yeah, I also coach the Solent Seahawks youth kitted team as well.
Oh, wow.
And we have a very similar playbook across the two teams. But obviously this adjustment is really allowing for blocking and obviously contact tackle. But the playbooks, the basics of the playbook are fundamentally the same.
Awesome, but there are obviously no I-form power runs or anything like that involved.
No, well, believe it or not, actually in flag, I run the ball quite a lot. It was one of the things that when I joined flag, I was quite surprised at the lack of running, really. But actually, I wouldn't say it's 50-50, but I actually run the ball quite a lot, even in flag football. Yeah.
Well, and of course, the first down mark is a lot further away, so I'm guessing that those runs have to be much longer than they would have to be in kitted football, because it's not 10 yards for a first down; it's pretty much half the pitch, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. The philosophy, again, this comes back into that philosophy I was saying, is that we want 4 or 5 yards on every play. That's what we're looking for. If we've got 4 downs and you get 4 or 5 yards on every play, we'll get a first down. If you do that again, we'll score a touchdown. So I try and coach the kids not to look for the big play, because as you'll know yourself as a player, when you're running the ball, you can try and beat 10 people and score the touchdown, but you might get tackled for a loss, or you can just beat the first guy, get tackled for a gain of 4 or 5 yards, and that's all we need. So that's part of the philosophy we try and coach into the guys is take what the defense gives you. We're not always trying to look to make the big play. It's just about moving the ball.
Awesome. In terms of tournaments and events you've entered, how much success have you had? Because I've read sort of your successes on your Instagram page and stuff, and it took me aback considering you only started in 2018. So what various accolades have your team won?
So we've won. We entered the SAF, I think, with yourselves. Our first season back in 2018. We'd been playing at that time for about sort of 18 months as a team, and we knew we had some good players and some good ability, but we didn't know what the opposition was like. So we'd never really sort of had a look at any opposition. So we came and played a friendly tournament in SAF in late 2017, and the kids really enjoyed it. It was really, really sort of good fun day. So we decided to enter SAF in 2018. It was kind of a non-competitive competition that year. But there was a finals day, etc., and the team were undefeated throughout the season. So that was a pretty good start to our season. And really for us, that was just to give us an understanding of what we didn't want to do was go into BAFA in our first season and then find out we were way off the mark in terms of ability level, and kids losing 50-60-0 every game in a season doesn't benefit anybody, because it just puts kids off playing, right? So we played SAF that first year. It was pretty successful, and then joined BAFA for 2019. In our first year, our cadet team made the national finals.
Wow.
We didn't perform that well in the national finals. Unfortunately, I think the occasion kind of got to them, but they won the sort of highest ranked teams in the country up until the national finals day. But I just think the occasion got to them a little bit. So that was a real massive achievement for our youth team, and especially as our cadet team. Sorry, a lot of them had only just started playing that year. They were, there's a few that had a year or two, but most of them were still quite new. And then our youth team just missed out on the finals day by 1 game. So it was a pretty successful first season for us. We were really, really pleased with that first season. And then we also entered a couple of just like the little local competitions. So I think you guys again, it was Kent Phoenix. I think was it Phoenix or the Mud Bowl.
We came over the Dog Bowl.
The Dog Bowl, sorry, yes, the Dog Bowl.
Yeah, that was that's my team, Hellingly Hound Dogs.
Okay, yeah, Hellingly, yeah, that's it. So we came over and played in the Dog Bowl, and the cadet team won the Dog Bowl. We played in the charity tournament up in Coventry for a young player who unfortunately just recently passed away from cancer. So in a charity game for him and his family, I guess, and we wasn't about winning in that one, but obviously we came away as champions in that one. So yeah, we've had quite a lot of success in our first sort of couple of years. But again, that's for me, that's the success is great, and it's obviously nice to have that. But for me, it's more about getting the kids playing to a good standard.
Absolutely. And am I right in thinking that you had 9 of your players selected for the North-South Bowl game, for the All-Star game?
Yeah, that's correct. We did. Yeah, so 9 from across our youth and cadet teams. We had 9 players selected for North v South. So that was, again, in our first season, a pretty impressive number. And again, especially as I think probably 4 or 5 of those players in the cadet range were complete rookies that year.
Wow, that's incredibly impressive.
Yeah. And again, to me, that just pays a testament to the fact that we coach fundamentals into the players. We don't try and make them, superstars. We just teach them to be fundamentally sound football players.
Awesome. What are the plans for the future of the Spitfires as a club?
Well, we're hoping to continue growing. As I'm not sure if you saw recently, we kind of just rebranded to a newer logo.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that new logo.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's pretty cool. The original logo was one that I designed when we set the team up very hastily, and I'm not a graphic designer by any means. While we liked the logo, it wasn't particularly great when it came to printing and embroidering and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we decided actually we were going to rebrand for this year, but then obviously COVID kind of raised its head, so we held off to rebrand for the 2021 season. But yeah, I think the team's got a bright future. We are attracting more and more players. I think we've got 30 plus players now, and wow. that's without recruitment starting this year yet. We're probably putting out 3 teams this year. Certainly one cadet, one youth, and then possibly one where they've changed all the age ranges. It's kind of messed things up for us as it has a lot of teams, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got to reconsider our teams and our age ranges, but we're hoping to put out 3 teams again this year in the different age ranges. So yeah, I think the team's got a really bright future. We seem to be growing and getting a lot of local attention. More and more people are becoming aware of the sport. And aware of the team as well. So yeah, it's really great. There's a bright future.
Lastly, if you could add any current NFL player to your roster, who would it be and why?
For me, there's only one. I'm a Seahawks fan, so it's got to be number 3.
Russell Wilson. It's got to be
Dangerous Wilson. Yeah. I just think he's a phenomenal ball player, not just obviously as a quarterback, but just his the way he handles himself. I think he's the epitome of how a franchise quarterback should be, not just on the field, but the way he handles himself, the way he handles the media. He's just a finished article for me.
Also, I know that all too well as a Cardinals fan. We've lost many times.
I saw the helmet in the background. Yeah. But you got one yourself now. You got one yourself now. So
we've got Kyler Murray. We're really happy with him. So,
absolutely.
We look forward to meeting up with you guys later in the season. See you will come out excellent. On top.
We will do. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, Coach.
No worries. You're welcome.
We'll be paying attention to your team as they continue. If there is a season this year, or if there's a season next year.
I'm sure there will be one next year, and we'll look forward to being over at Kent in some time, I'm sure.
All right. Thank you, and good luck for the future.
Thanks very much. Cheers. Take care.